Hello and welcome to the Alliance for Charitable Gifting of Real Estate. I am your host, Cami Baker, CamiBaker.com, and we are on Unity Radio 97.9 FM. We live stream on WUTY979FM.org, and we have a Facebook page where you can come in and ask questions and be a part of the live stream when we are back up in live stream. Currently, we are in the Corona epidemic, and so we are doing Zooms with and interviewing our guests and broadcasting them later, but we will be live again. So today we are talking to one of the benefactors of a charitable gift of real estate. This gentleman, Erik Glenn, is one of the nonprofits that has benefited, and we just want to get your perspective of it, how the whole thing started. Let's start out with who your nonprofit is. Please share with us a little bit about your group.
Sure. So I'm the executive director of the Colorado Cattleman's Agricultural Land Trust. We are a nonprofit that's been around for 25 years, celebrating 25 years this year, focused and dedicated on the preservation and conservation of Western heritage and specifically farms and ranches across Colorado. And so we work with farm and ranch families to conserve their property and ensure that we, the citizens of Colorado and across the country, continue to have places that grow the food that we all rely on.
I love that this gives me the opportunity to talk to so many nonprofits. There's 1.5 million in the United States that cover just about any kind of cause you can imagine. And, we always think about the puppies and the veterans and the people that are hungry, et cetera, but we don't think about, that's what you guys are doing. Like you just said, you're taking care of the land that grows that food to feed people. So how did you get started in that group?
So I've been with the organization now for about 12 years, and I started out in 2008 as a project manager. So I was helping facilitate transactions to conserve these properties and working with the landowners and various partners to ensure that these properties stay open and producing food. And I got into it because I grew up in agriculture. I have family roots in both ranching and farming. And it was a nice way to be able to give back to an industry and to a lifestyle that had a big difference in making me who I am and that I love and love working with the people and being able to ensure that we can continue to produce, one, a local product, but two, a safe and a healthy product for all the folks out there that rely on America's farmers and ranchers. And I think in Corona times, when we see challenges with supply chains on food, it makes it even more relevant. And so we're really, really happy to be doing the work that we do. It's meaningful, it's impactful, and for me, it's challenging each and every day, and that's fun.
Well, at the Alliance and with Realty Gift Fund, one of our mottos is do what you do best and refer the rest. And for all of us to stay in our wheelhouse, and even though your organization obviously deals with real estate, land, et cetera, even with that being said, it's a different kind of real estate. So when it came to having property donated to you, can you just talk us through the process of what that looked like?
Yeah, so we had been working with a donor for about 2 years who wanted to make an impactful gift to the organization, truly believed in conservation, the mission of Colorado Cattleman's Ag Land Trust. And the way that it worked in his circumstance was a gift of some rental property that he had would allow him to make that impactful gift. And as you said, we do work in the type of real estate transaction, but the dealing with residential commercial properties isn't something that we do. And so this was the first time that somebody had gifted us real property in the history of the organization. And it was nice to have a partner in Realty Gift Fund that took the risk out of that time between the donation of the gift and being able to dispose of that gift and turn it into cash. and dispose is kind of a funny word, but that the best way to describe it. And Realty Gift Fund has a unique model in that they take that risk out of the transaction for the nonprofit. And so while the donation technically is made to Realty Gift Fund, the proceeds then come back to the nonprofit that the donor assigns in the upfront agreements with Realty Gift Fund. So it becomes a bit of a four-way transaction where you have the donor, Realty Gift Fund, and so a three-way transaction, I guess. The donor, Realty Gift Fund, and the nonprofit. And in the case of our situation, the donor also contributed to a couple other nonprofits that he was passionate about. The vast majority of the proceeds came to us, but he was able to support other organizations that he believed in, and the whole process took about 6 to 9 months to complete. From the time the donation was made from the donor's perspective, and he was able to claim the tax advantages he was looking for until the time that we received proceeds from the sale of the property was about 3 months. But there were some challenges in the closing of the real estate transaction, and we were aware of them, but we didn't have to concern ourselves with them. It was mostly just anticipating when the proceeds would arrive. And so for a nonprofit like ours, having that weight lifted off of our shoulders and just essentially waiting for proceeds to arrive makes the process, I would say, one, hassle-free. There really was no hassle on our part. And two, just risk-free. It's just, we have to do our job of making sure that the donor loves the organization, feels committed to it, feels good about the way the proceeds will be distributed. All the other stuff, Realty Gift Fund handles, and that's a true benefit to nonprofits, and I also think to the donors themselves.
Well, and actually, some of the people who donate property don't even know who they're going to give the money to. They just know that the end of the year is coming and they need a write-off, or they know that they want to dispose of, liquidate their property, and they don't want to pay capital gains tax, so they go this route. And maybe they even put the cash in a donor advisory fund, and they figure who's going to get it later. So just want our viewers and listeners to know that there's lots of different ways that these transactions go down. But the fact is, as a nonprofit, even though you were waiting on the money, you weren't doing anything. Like, you weren't taking on any of the paperwork or the negotiation or the hassle or the risk.
Exactly. And I think your point's a good one, that donors can do many different things with how they want to distribute those proceeds, and it just gives them great flexibility. And so, if folks are looking to avoid capital gains tax and get rid of a second property that they no longer need, this is a great tool for people to consider.
Now, you mentioned that this was the first piece of real estate that has been donated that you're aware of in 25 years or so. Had you ever even heard of this possibility, and how did it come into your awareness now?
Yeah, we, of course, because we work in real estate, we anticipate that we'll see a significant number of real estate gifts over the history of the organization moving forward. But it was the first one that had been actually gifted and the transaction completed since the organization was established. We know of 3 or 4 others that exist out there in estate planning with donors that we're in contact with. But again, in those situations, you're working with the donor in ensuring that they continue to have a good relationship with the organization, and then upon their passing, then the property is transferred to the organization, and then the work before Realty Gift Fund, the work would have been on us to figure out, okay, how are we going to pay the property taxes? How are we going to do uh, infrastructure improvements, and those kind of things. Whereas now we can work with Realty Gift Fund to offload that risk, put that risk and that workload on them, which they're well equipped to handle, and we can sit back and really benefit from from what the donor really wanted for the organization uh, to reap, which was some additional proceeds to continue the good work that we do.
Well, when we come back from break, I'd love to hear what those funds went to, because I want our viewers and listeners to really think outside the box about all the different nonprofits that they are aware of or maybe aren't aware of, and all the things that we just don't think about that go into keeping those nonprofits afloat and being able to do your mission. I mean, you need to have software and online presence and all different kinds of things. So we'll talk about that in a moment. And also with our interview here, my intention is also for you to be able to share this with people in your community that don't know that the charitable gifting of real estate exists and that may want to donate more property to you. To your point, there's a few more transactions. How many people are currently in your sphere of influence or already supporters of yours, email list, Facebook, etc.?
We have about 6,000 in our email list that we're communicating with fairly regularly. So it's we're not a big organization. I would say we're an impactful organization that's trying to get the word out about who we are and also tell folks why it's relevant to them and why they should support land conservation, because it really is something meaningful to each of us, either from food production, food security, to climate change, to just preserving these beautiful properties that we all drive by as we drive through the West and enjoy.
So true. So true. Well, we are on Unity Radio, Worcester's Community Connection, 97.9 FM, WUTY979FM.org. You can watch our Facebook as we live stream when we're back from the pandemic. And you're listening to Erik Glenn, who is one of the recipients of some cash from the donation of real estate, who didn't have to sell it, didn't have to hire the realtor, didn't have to do anything but say thank you. And when we come back from break, we'll talk about what that money went to. We'll be right back.